when Beyoncé was 3, I took her to the Triumph tour with Michael Jackson and his brothers.
Wow.
And my friend said, well, if you go to this certain area at the Astrodome, he's gonna come out that way. So I had her out there. It was a group of about 20 people. He walks over, tries to grab her. And she loved him so much. She was just overwhelmed, as kids do, and she just started crying, and you know, she wouldn't go to him. But what are the odds of that?
Wow.
And she said then, I'm gonna be like Michael Jackson. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Look at her now.
Look at her now. And I just think that that's how faith in God works.
Media trainers have been training older artists to lie and say they were as much as 10 years younger than they were. It's all to sell you records, to sell you a...
Some online discussions have circled the rumor that Solange is Beyoncé's daughter for years, but this version appeared to hit people differently because according to online chatter, it may have come from someone said to be closely tied to Mama Tina's inner circle. And that is where the story starts getting even messier. Wendy Williams was often seen by viewers as someone who seemed to have receipts on celebrity drama. And now, internet discussions are pulling her name right back into this conversation. On top of that, Tina's ex-husband, Richard Lawson, has also been pulled into the speculation. Some commentators believe he may still have unresolved feelings about how things played out with the Knowles family, and rumors have been spreading that he may have been sharing private details. According to those same disputed claims, what Wendy allegedly knew has been said by some online commentators to line up with talk that Richard is now backing the longtime rumor that Solange might actually be Beyoncé's daughter all along. To be clear, that allegation remains unverified. No official confirmation has been provided. And the way these names keep resurfacing is exactly why the story keeps grabbing attention.
Who was partners with L.A. Reid and Babyface in Atlanta, and these guys had this competitiveness. L.A. had a girls group. I bet you don't know who his lead singer was.
No.
Pink. She's the exact same age as Beyonce, and there used to be this battle which group was better. You had Usher, he was the same age. They were all 14 and 15 years old living in Atlanta.
Once people start digging into the Knowles family rumors, the conversation online tends to get intense fast. Some commentators have even argued that a lot may have been kept tightly controlled to protect Beyoncé's public image, which is exactly why Tina Knowles' legal terms with Richard Lawson caught so much attention. According to public discussion around the divorce, Tina and Richard had known each other for more than 30 years before they began dating in 2013. So some viewers questioned why the restrictions appeared to be so firm after the marriage ended. But online reactions suggest Tina was not leaving anything to chance. Reports about the divorce settlement pointed to a strict non-disparagement clause, an NDA that allegedly limited Richard from speaking publicly about the Knowles family. That immediately set off more speculation because people started asking the same question. What exactly was considered so sensitive that it needed to be handled this carefully? In a lot of online conversations, that question keeps circling back to the long-running mystery over Beyoncé and Solange's real relationship. That is where the story takes another turn. Beyoncé is publicly described as being 44 years old, and has said that she was born in 1981. But around 2006, rumors spread that someone claiming to work for the Texas Department of Health leaked what was described as Beyoncé's official birth record, and the date shown there was September 4, 1974. The claim has remained disputed and no official confirmation has been provided. But at the time, people online did not know what to make of it. If that claim were ever true, it would mean about 7 years had supposedly been shaved off Beyoncé's age. And that is exactly why the story exploded online. But if the document was not authentic, critics immediately asked a different question. Why would a state agency even be connected to something like that in the first place? According to the public back and forth at the time, the Texas Health Department first said it could neither confirm nor deny the document. Then, as the attention kept building, the department later stated that the record was not authentic and that officials had no knowledge of where it came from. Even with that response, the speculation did not slow down. Some people online argued that a 1974 birth year seemed to line up with comments the family had made over the years. One detail that kept getting repeated was Mama Tina saying Beyoncé attended Michael Jackson's Triumph tour in 1981. In online discussions, that moment was framed as especially important because it was supposedly when she realized she wanted the stage, the spotlight, and that whole larger-than-life world. That is why the rumor kept pulling people back in, because to some viewers that timeline seemed to raise even more questions. And once a rumor starts connecting scattered family comments, legal restrictions, and old public records, online reaction usually shifts from casual gossip to intense scrutiny. People were not just repeating the claim. They were picking apart every timeline detail they could find, trying to figure out whether the pieces actually fit, or whether the internet was forcing a story together that was never there in the first place. That is a big part of why this discussion kept resurfacing. To some viewers, the denials did not settle anything. They only made the speculation louder. Others pushed back just as hard, arguing that internet theories often grow because people want a shocking twist, not because the claims are solid. That split is what gave the whole conversation so much heat. Because every old interview, family anecdote, and disputed document started getting re-examined through that same lens. And when a story reaches that point, even ordinary details begin to look loaded. Supporters of the rumor treated small inconsistencies like hidden clues, while critics said the entire narrative was being stitched together out of assumption and hindsight. Either way, the public reaction was no longer about one single claim. It had turned into a bigger debate over image control, and whether the public had ever been told the full story, at least according to the people driving the conversation online. Interview 6:42722. Then the conversation pulled in Gabrielle Union, and that is where online speculation started heating up again. Gabrielle, who was born in 1972, once spoke about her friendship with Beyoncé and described it in very familiar terms. In the interview she said, "Beyoncé and I have been friends since we were teenagers. We go to the same hairstylist now, and you know how those bonds are. Beyoncé is such a polite, nurturing person and a joy to work with. It's easy to work with her because she is a good friend of mine." That quote immediately caught attention because people online began comparing it to Beyoncé's publicly stated birth year. If the official timeline is accurate, some commentators pointed out that Beyoncé would have reportedly been around 9 years old when Gabrielle was 18, since there is said to be a 9-year age difference between them. And that is why skeptics kept asking the same thing: would an 18-year-old really describe a 4th grader as a teenage friend? On the other hand, online discussions argued that if the disputed 1974 date were true, the age gap would reportedly shrink to about 2 years, which to some viewers made Gabrielle's wording sound far less unusual. People started wondering whether Gabrielle had simply misspoken, or whether some viewers were reading much more into her words than was actually there. From there, the speculation widened again. Critics of Beyoncé's longtime media image have claimed for years that the team around her is extremely careful about protecting her brand and controlling what reaches the public. In that version of the story, some online voices alleged that older pre-fame footage or video could have been cleaned up or made harder to find if it was seen as potentially damaging. Others pointed to past instances where photos were said to have been removed from the internet, and used that as part of a larger argument that image management around Beyoncé has always been unusually tight. Even so, those claims remain part of internet commentary, not verified proof, but they are exactly the kind of details that keep this rumor cycle alive. Those unflattering Super Bowl photos still get dragged back into this conversation because many people online believe their removal was not random at all. In rumor-heavy spaces, that moment gets treated like part of a much bigger effort to control Beyoncé's public image. From there, the speculation jumps fast, with some commentators claiming her age may have been presented differently for years, and that old family photos were possibly altered to support the long-running theory that she could actually be Solange's mother. It sounds wild, but that is exactly why the story keeps spreading. According to these disputed online claims, Beyoncé supposedly had Solange as a teenager, and then with help from the people around her built a completely different public version of events to keep that hidden. The allegation remains unverified, but rumor accounts often push it even further by claiming Solange's biological father was allegedly Beyoncé's first boyfriend, someone they say believed she would eventually marry him before fame changed everything. The speculation picked up even more because people online tied it to a story from 2011 involving a former Columbia Records employee. That person allegedly claimed that while working at the label, they had heard extensive behind-the-scenes talk about Beyoncé's past. The part that caught the most attention, according to internet retellings, was the claim that ages in the original Destiny's Child lineup had been adjusted publicly, with LaToya supposedly named as the only exception. And then came the detail that really sent rumor pages into overdrive. According to that former employee's alleged account, they said they saw Beyoncé's driver's license on her manager's computer, and that it showed a 1974 birth year. No official confirmation has been provided for that claim, and it remains part of disputed online commentary, but it is exactly the specific detail that keeps people arguing over whether these rumors point to something real, or whether the internet is connecting pieces that do not actually belong together. According to this former employee's account, the story went even further. They alleged there was actually a 14-year age gap between Beyoncé and Solange, and that the public sister narrative was used to cover what online rumor circles describe as a teenage pregnancy. To support that claim, the source pointed back to Beyoncé's early days in Girls' Time. That was the group's name before the transition into Destiny's Child. And it is often brought up because the group appeared on Star Search and lost the competition in 1993. From there, internet discussions zeroed in on Nikki Taylor, who performed in the group with Beyoncé. Nikki was said to have been born in 1975, which would have reportedly made her around 18 at the time of that Star Search appearance. That detail became a major talking point for people pushing the rumor because they questioned why an 18-year-old would be grouped with performers who were publicly described as being around 11 or 12. Critics of the theory, of course, would argue that internet timelines can get distorted fast, but rumor pages treated that age difference like a huge red flag. The same discussions also claimed that details about Nicki's age had become difficult to find, with some online voices suggesting that what remains mostly confirms only that she was connected to Destiny's Child at one stage. That again is part of the speculation, not verified proof, but it is exactly the kind of missing detail narrative that keeps people locked into stories like this. Then came another claim from the employee that really stirred attention. They said that even aside from the disputed driver's license story, Beyoncé's cousin Angie Beyoncé, a songwriter, was allegedly overheard sharing private remarks with staff at a Christmas party after Beyoncé supposedly made a comment about her weight. According to the employee's retelling, Angie joked about having childbearing hips because she had already given birth, and the rumor account claimed she implied that child was Solange. That allegation remains unverified and it survives mainly through internet retellings, but it is easy to see why that detail sent speculation into overdrive. What made the reaction even more intense was how these rumor threads kept mixing emotional family dynamics with tiny details that people online treated like major clues. Once that happens, every offhand remark starts getting examined for hidden meaning, and every silence gets framed as suspicious. Supporters of the theory argued that too many pieces seemed to echo the same story, while critics kept warning that repetition on the internet does not turn speculation into fact. That push and pull is really what gave the story its staying power. It was no longer just about one disputed claim. It was about whether years of public appearances, interviews, and carefully managed narratives had left enough room for doubt that people would keep digging. Anyway, in spaces already primed to question celebrity image control, even weak connections can start to feel persuasive, especially when they are repeated with confidence. At the same time, others saw the whole thing very differently. They argued that this is exactly how rumor culture works. A vague claim gets repeated, unrelated details get pulled into it, and before long, the theory starts sounding bigger than the evidence behind it. That divide is what kept the conversation alive because each side believed the other was ignoring something important. That is why some rumor accounts claim the family may not have reacted with the same level of surprise as the public later did when Solange faced her own teenage pregnancy, because in that version of events, they had supposedly already dealt with something similar involving Beyoncé. The same online speculation also tries to reframe Jay-Z and Beyoncé's relationship, with commentators arguing that if the disputed age claims were true, the age gap between them would not have seemed as large when they first got together. None of that has been officially confirmed, but those are the exact talking points that keep circulating in these discussions. People pushing that theory often add that age changes in entertainment are not unheard of. They point to examples they believe show how common image adjustments can be in the industry. Nelly, for instance, has been cited in online retellings as someone who publicly claimed he was born in 1978, when he signed his first contract, while some discussions say his actual birth year was 1974. Michael Jackson also gets mentioned because Berry Gordy was said to have advised him to present himself as 9 instead of 11 to seem more marketable to the public. In that context, some commentators argue that Beyoncé already had the talent, presence, and star power to reach the top with the right backing, and that adjusting her age, if it ever happened, would have been viewed by people around her as a simple way to smooth over details that might raise questions. That remains speculation, but it is how these rumor threads try to connect one claim to the next. The conversation then turns even more controversial. Online rumor spaces have repeated claims about Beyoncé's personal life for years, including allegations that she moved quickly in relationships and was involved with both men and women. Those claims remain unverified and supporters would likely reject them completely, but they continued to appear in internet retellings. Some versions of the story further alleged that Matthew Knowles kept a tight lid on that image while he was managing her, and that things changed once Jay-Z entered the picture. From there, the speculation escalates fast. Rumor accounts often point to Kimberly Thompson, Beyoncé's former drummer, and the lawsuit she filed containing extreme allegations involving spiritual practices and misconduct. Those claims were highly disputed and drew major attention online, but they were still allegations, not established fact. Even so, people in these discussion spaces keep bringing that case up as if it supports a much bigger pattern, which is exactly how stories like this keep gaining momentum. Interview, 17:38-1807. Now, the online talk is shifting toward what supposedly happened after Tina and Richard Lawson's marriage fell apart. In rumor circles, people have been claiming that Richard was left feeling dismissed by the family, as if he was treated like an outsider rather than an equal. Some of those same discussions even alleged that his daughter, Bianca Lawson, was not treated well either. None of that has been officially confirmed. But those claims are being used to explain why some internet voices believe Richard may have started sharing private grievances and family stories once the marriage ended. According to that version of events, His alleged frustration opened the door to a whole wave of messy commentary. Rumor accounts say he has supposedly been speaking on everything, from claims that Tina wanted to stay at the center of attention, to suggestions that Solange and Jules were facing serious strain, to long-running speculation that Jay-Z and Beyoncé's marriage is more about image than reality. And buried inside all of that is the part that keeps grabbing the most attention, the ongoing, unverified theory about what Solange and Beyoncé's real relationship might be. It is a lot, and every part of it remains disputed online. Wendy Williams keeps getting pulled into the conversation, too, because she was such a major media voice through the 80s and 90s. Some commentators insist she had been hearing these stories for years, and may have been sitting on what they call real receipts. That claim again lives mostly as an internet discussion, not official proof. Still, supporters of the theory argue that she allegedly knew much more than she ever publicly said. Those same online narratives then take another turn by claiming Wendy was unable to speak freely before because of her conservatorship. Now, with renewed attention around her public return, some social media users are speculating that she might finally address long-whispered celebrity secrets and speak more openly than before. Whether that actually happens is still unknown, and no confirmation has been provided that she plans to verify any of these rumors. But in the world of celebrity commentary, even the possibility of Wendy re-entering the conversation has people watching closely. And right on cue, the reactions came flooding in. Some viewers argued that when a celebrity keeps their personal history tightly controlled, it can make people wonder what is being kept out of sight. Others took it further and said that if any age details were ever adjusted, they would hope it was not tied to a situation that placed her in a harmful or exploitative dynamic with Jay-Z. That remains part of online commentary, not a confirmed fact, but it shows how emotionally charged this discussion has become. Another reaction focused on the long-running rumor about Solange. Some people said that if there were any truth to that theory, they would hope it was not connected to some deeply painful circumstance surrounding the pregnancy. One commenter even claimed they had been saying this for around 20 years, pointing to a moment they believe happened when her father almost revealed too much on MTV behind the scenes. According to that version of events, he mentioned an upcoming birthday, and people around him quickly tried to shut the conversation down. That claim has circulated in rumor spaces for years, but it remains disputed online. So, after all the speculation, the recycled timelines, and the claims that still have no official confirmation, the question keeps hanging there. Do you think there is any truth to the rumor that Beyoncé is actually Solange's mother? If that MTV birthday moment or any of the age gap talk stood out to you, like, subscribe, share, comment, and see you on the next one.